This was the most riveting hour and a half of TV I have seen in a long time. You know, one of the perks of not watching the news and not reading about these like human interest stories that happen out there is that I had no idea about this story. I had not heard of it. So again, spoiler alert for those of you who are out there and haven't seen it. You might want to skip ahead to the rest of this segment because I'm going to spoiler some things for you here. But if you've watched it, I'm happy to give you my take on it. This was the most riveting hour and a half of TV I have seen in a long time. I heard about it. People were talking about it. And I said, you know what? If it's not one of these 8-part things that they could have done in a half an hour, if they didn't drag it out, I'll watch it. And I watched it, and I have to tell you, I was riveted from beginning to end. But I, from minute one, went, it's one of the adults. It's one of the adults. It's one of the parents. And maybe that's because I'm pessimistic by nature and I can see how crazy adults can be and how much they can devolve into this kind of a chaos that their kids, are experiencing. Because again, their kids are kids. They're going through high school. They're going through tumultuous emotional years where people do impulsive things. Their prefrontal cortex, when they're that age, is not fully developed. So they don't really think about consequences the way that adults should. You don't really have a fully developed prefrontal cortex until you're like 22, 23, depending on your gender. But let me tell you, I was in no way surprised to see that this was one of the parents who was behind this. What I found most fascinating about it, and I see all the time in my work, is this sense of explanation and thinking that explanation excuses things. You know, at the end of the video, she talks about the mother who was responsible for creating all this chaos, talks about the fact that she was a when she was 17 years old. As if somehow this explains sending her daughter thousands of text messages that she should harm herself, that she's anorexic, that she's awful, that she should engage in all kinds of sexual behaviors with her underage boyfriend. As if somehow that excuses that, as if somehow, the trauma she experienced somehow informs her right or ability or gives her reason to have done these horrible things to this entire town, really. It also drove home to me why I'm so glad I live in a metropolis like New York City, because I think this was the only thing that had happened in this town of any interest for a really, really long time. And that's why all of these adults and all these got so deeply invested emotionally in this conflict. And it turned into like something like Arthur Miller's The Crucible. Like it turned into the Salem witch trials where everybody was blaming everybody else. And again, the burden of proof kind of becomes irrelevant because there's this court of public opinion that's happening. And then when the truth comes out, which was kind of right in plain sight. I mean, again, minute one, I was like, oh yeah, definitely one of the parents was behind this. It really turned into something that I think it's completely caught our cultural collective attention. And now everybody's talking about it.